Have you ever stared into her eyes and felt something ancient stirring? An unnamed storm crashing beneath the surface? A sweetness so disarming it silenced your caution? A look that made you forget the very sharpness of your own edge? Brother, this isn't romance, it's architecture. A blueprint of seduction that modern men have chosen to ignore, not because it's untrue, but because knowing it costs too much. Socrates didn't shy away. He stepped right into that fire. What he uncovered wasn't disdain for women, but a truth about their essence that still haunts the male psyche. His warnings weren't venom, they were sharpened steel. Where men are molded through directness, women emerge wrapped in illusion. He didn't say it to insult, but to jolt you awake. Because what is hidden should never be followed blindly, and what captivates must be dissected before it consumes. The Athenians mocked him. The court condemned him. But Socrates met their scorn with a smile. He knew the danger isn't the woman misunderstood, but the man who never bothered to understand her. A man who sees only her surface and not her mechanisms is like a warrior entranced by the gleam of a blade, mesmerizing and lethal. Socrates taught through questions. So ask them, why does her influence grow strongest in the dark? Why is affection from her often interlaced with calculation? Why does her silence echo louder than her speech? If you don't ask, you won't perceive. And if you don't perceive, you won't kneel in reverence, you'll kneel in delusion. In the Republic, Socrates described the balanced soul, one governed by reason, not dragged by urges or impulse. But what becomes of the man who dedicates his existence to a woman he doesn't truly grasp? That man doesn't build himself, he builds a temple to confusion. Socrates spoke of the tyrannical soul, a being ruled by appetite, forever craving, never calm. Brothers, how many men parade as rational minds while secretly enslaved to a craving for feminine approval? How many construct empires, not for legacy, but to dazzle a woman who will vanish once the gates fall? Understand this. Socrates wasn't warning you about her. He was warning you about yourself. If you don't comprehend her nature, she's not your enemy. She's not your savior. She's your crucible, and you will either emerge forged or shattered beneath your own illusions. You were conditioned to chase beauty. But Socrates knew, beauty is the lure. What matters is what fuels it. And this is where men stumble. You pursue her form, forgetting her function. You crave her closeness, but ignore her cycles. You don't analyze, you collapse. And when you collapse, she won't catch you. Not from cruelty, but because it's not her design. She chooses, she evaluates, she adjusts, but she does not construct. That's your responsibility, your weight, and your reward. A man, Socrates said, must live examined. That includes how you think about her. That includes your cravings, your flaws, your hunger. Leave those unexplored, and she'll notice what you ignore. And she'll act on it, not with spite, but with necessity. As rivers carve stone, not from hate, but by nature, so too does she shape men. She doesn't despise the ones she outmaneuvers. She's simply doing what she was built to do. But are you doing what you were meant to? Socrates lived among men who misread power, thinking it came from ballots, coin, and cheers. But he knew, real power belongs to the man who cannot be fooled, especially by the thing he desires most. That's where your journey begins. You weren't born to spin around her orbit. You were born to command your own. Socrates declared the unexamined life unworthy of living. But he also knew, unexamined desire is even more dangerous. And no desire hides its teeth better than the one directed at women. It cloaks itself as love. It speaks like truth. It moves like fate. But beneath it lies instinct, survival, selection, the primal code. You name it, love. She calls it timing. In Phaedrus, Socrates warned that love, when divorced from reason, mutates into madness. Divine madness maybe, but madness nonetheless. He said that a soul gripped by lust becomes a crippled creature, wingless, crawling, fixated on what feeds it. And today, look around. How many men are trapped in that spiral? How many have thrown away their purpose, their code, their autonomy, for what? A fleeting thrill, a dopamine jolt in the shape of soft words and warm skin. You're not here to be consumed by the feminine, you're here to decode it. Socrates noticed, men seek truth, women often seek alignment, not with truth, but with safety. That's not an insult, it's evolutionary genius. It's survival calculus. But you must be awake to it. She doesn't seek what's righteous. She seeks what keeps her secure. She's scanning for stability, strength, and structure. Your intelligence doesn't ignite her. Your ambition does. Your confidence, your grip on your world. That's what draws her. But if you place her on the throne before you've earned your own crown, she will never bow. If you raise her above your mission, she will test you until you crumble. Not because she's cruel, but because you expose the truth. You'd sell your soul for her presence. Socrates split the soul into 3 parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. The greatest man lives under reason's rule. But when appetite takes the reins, be it lust, emotion, or validation, the man collapses. He stops leading. He begins to follow. Not her, but his ache for her. You know these men. You've seen them. Men who radiate only when she reflects light back at them. Men who kneel without knowing which god they kneel to. Men who would torch their own code just to keep her from being cold. And if you're not alert, if you don't awaken, you'll be next. Socrates lived in a sea of men who mistook noise for wisdom, allure for virtue, flattery for truth. He saw through the fog, and when he challenged the illusion, they silenced him. But his voice still cuts through, not for the masses, not for the simps, but for you, the one brave enough to see what's real. He saw that women are instinctively tuned to the now, emotion, safety, immediacy. Men, however, are cursed and blessed with foresight. Your thoughts stretch into tomorrow. Your soul longs for impact. Your bones carry the burden of vision. But vision is a costly weight, and she offers you something tempting, an exit into comfort, into warmth, into a fantasy called peace. You must decline. Your peace must be carved from clarity, not her agreement. She will probe your structure. She will challenge your resolve. She will reflect your doubt right back at you with surgical precision. And if you haven't conquered yourself, she will conquer you. Not through evil, but through perfect instinct. Socrates taught not to hate what confuses you, but to dissect it. Not to cower before mystery, but to expose it. So turn your light on her, not with cynicism, but with lucidity. She is not your anchor. She is the ocean. Can you tell the difference? You must become a philosopher of your own desires. Socrates often spoke more through silence than speech. He knew man is not undone by weapons or rulers, but by cravings he never dared to question. And no craving shakes men deeper than the feminine mystique they never stop to study. The tragedy isn't that you want her. The tragedy is you don't know why. And in that ignorance, you make her divine, and then curse her when she doesn't perform miracles. The truth? She was never designed to complete you. She was crafted to test you. In Gorgias, Socrates demolishes the illusion that pleasure equals good, that what feels right must be right. He tears apart the belief that approval, especially from others, especially from women, is proof of virtue. And what he uncovers should shake modern men to their core. Your need for her recognition isn't noble. It's a symptom of how far you've drifted from your purpose. You don't need her gaze. You need a soul that can stand tall when no one's looking. Men aren't failing from a lack of potential, but from inner decay. They've learned to read her moods better than their own convictions. They rehearse the lines that please her and forget the vows they once made to themselves. You think you're showing romance. She sees a man who's lost his fire, and she's not wrong. A woman can't love what she doesn't respect, and she cannot respect what she can manipulate. Socrates didn't phrase it like this, but every layer of his logic screams it. Harmony isn't sameness. It's every soul playing its part. She doesn't want to steer the ship. She wants to feel safe under your command. But if you step down, if you make her feelings your compass, her approval your mirror, her affection your goal, you're not a man. You're a moon, orbiting whatever she shines. She might let you stay, but not out of desire, out of convenience. And trust this, convenience has an expiration date. The world is packed with men who tried to buy her love with worship, but love isn't earned through devotion, it's earned through dominance of self. In Meno, Socrates asks whether virtue can be taught. But the deeper question he raises is, do men even recognize virtue anymore? Ask yourself the same. Do you know what masculine strength looks like before you try offering it to her? Or have you confused discipline with desperation, lust with loyalty, submission with connection? She doesn't want you broken. She doesn't want you needy. She doesn't even want you nice. She wants you true. The real man doesn't revolve around the feminine. He aligns with truth, justice, and principle, and only invites her along if she can keep his rhythm. When she sees you move from principle, not persuasion, when she watches you speak with restraint, lead with certainty, and love without dissolving into her, then she'll follow. Not because you forced her, but because you earned it. That is the paradox Socrates understood. Power isn't something you chase. It comes when you become the kind of man who doesn't need it handed to him, least of all from her. The moment you stop reaching for her validation and start reaching for your own essence, not your skin, not your swagger, but your soul, you become something different. Not untouchable because you're cold, but because you're complete. And that wholeness, that's the lost treasure of manhood. The ancient temples of Athens weren't built for comfort. They were carved for virtue, etched with trials, whispered with wisdom, watched over by men like Socrates. Know thyself, not please her, not mold yourself into her fantasy. Know, because in knowing there is strength, and in strength there is peace. But men today are far from peace. They aren't fighting her. They're at war with the lie they keep telling themselves, that her love will save them, that her body will quiet their storms, that her smile can replace a spine. That isn't love. That's intoxication. And every true philosopher knows, no man drunk on illusion can see what's real. Socrates spoke of forms, those perfect patterns behind our earthly shadows. There is a form of womanhood, just like there's a form of manhood. But modern men aren't chasing the form. They're addicted to its reflection, the curves, the glances, the perfume and posturing. And they never stop to ask, what does this form serve? What does it protect? What does it consume? She isn't evil. She's efficient. She isn't deceitful. She's adaptive. She isn't damaged. She's multi-layered. She was wired to survive. Not for you, but for herself. Her instincts outpace your fantasies. Her choices outrun your emotions. And when your vision gets clouded by longing or lust, she sees straight through to your fragility. Socrates never spelled this out, but it's embedded in every dialogue he left behind. You're either ruled by logic or ruled by desire. There is no neutral ground. The man who dives into her without direction doesn't gain freedom. He loses himself. He may smile, but he's drowning. And who does he blame? Her. For the current, he never learned to swim in. But a man who's trained in reason, a man who's examined his instincts, confronted his craving, stripped the illusion before it wrapped around him, that man doesn't sink. He steers, and she sees it. She respects him. Not because he's cruel, but because he's clear. In Symposium, Socrates recalls Diotima, a woman who reframes love, not as indulgence, but as a staircase. One begins with attraction to a single body, then ascends toward love for all beauty, then for truth itself, and finally, for the divine. But most men never climb. They cling to the first step. They decay in desire, never asking where it was meant to lead. But you are not most men. You rise. She is not your destination. She's the question that starts your path. She's the doorway, not the palace. She is the breeze. But you must be the sail. Your power isn't in controlling her. It's in transcending your need to be validated by her. Let her remain mystery. Let her remain contradiction. Let her remain woman. But you, be man, a man in the Socratic tradition. Disciplined, reflective, unshaken by flattery, unmoved by rejection, unfazed by sparkle and noise. That's your journey. That's your inheritance. That's your dignity. And dignity isn't a handout. It's forged in silence, under the weight of solitude, in those moments when no one's clapping, no one's watching, and no one's coming to rescue you. That's where Socrates would tell you to build. not wrapped in her arms, not swimming in her praise, but rooted in your own sovereign depth. A man who needs her affection to feel whole has no fire of his own. A man who compromises his truth to keep her near will, eventually, fracture. And when he breaks, she won't gather the pieces, not from malice, but from instinct. Even she is looking for a man who doesn't need her, but who chooses her with eyes wide open, knowing exactly what she is and what she isn't. She isn't your counselor. She isn't your salvation. She isn't your measuring stick for worth. Want her to see you? Then stand where few men ever dare, alone, disciplined, mastered, and free from the hunger to be seen at all. Socrates once said, "The shortest and surest way to live with honor is to be what we pretend to be." And what does every man pretend to be? Strong, wise, respected, desired. But how many are willing to pay the price to actually become it? Don't chase her gaze. Grow presence. Don't chase her skin. Conquer your craving. Don't chase her affection. Offer her truth, and let her respond however she will. That is what Socrates meant by the examined life. Not just ideas, but intention. Not just theories, but posture. Not just knowing your soul exists, but witnessing what your soul does when it's face to face with temptation, beauty, and abandonment. Because that moment, when she tests you, pulls away, goes silent, that is your trial. That is the arena. That's where weak men collapse, giving up their crown in exchange for a chance to be held. But not you. You will stand. You will hold. You will choose reason over reaction. You will understand. She isn't the challenge. She's the mirror. If her absence breaks your concentration, it means your focus was brittle to begin with. If her silence crushes your spirit, it was never solid. Don't hate her for being what nature made her. Study her. Respect her system. Learn her patterns, but never bow to them. She is the wind, wild, shifting, untamed. But you are the mast. You don't rage when the current changes. You adjust your sail. That is manhood. Not dominance, not conquest, but orientation that cannot be broken. This is the truth no one teaches you. This is the wisdom your culture has buried beneath softness and slogans. But Socrates whispered it still, in every metaphor, every riddle, every cup of hemlock. Be unshaken. And when you are unshaken, she'll feel it, not in fear, in reverence. She'll know, this man cannot be moved. And when she knows that, her nature takes over. She'll orbit, not because you demanded it, but because her instinct chose you. Not as a reward for performance, but as gravity responding to mass. Because women, in their deepest truth, don't fall for men. They synchronize with them. They reflect strength, not pity. They follow resonance, not rhetoric. They seek fire, not the blaze that flares and dies, but the one that endures. Socrates never would have begged for her devotion. He would have become the kind of man to whom devotion happens naturally, because he understood energy's law. What is rooted shapes what is fluid. And you weren't made to chase water with empty hands. You were built to carve a channel and let it flow to you. Today's world tells you to bend to her emotions, to soften, to please, to adjust. But in doing that, it teaches you to betray the law etched in your bones. Never fold unless it's your deliberate choice. Because once you start bending to win her favor, you'll bend again, and again, and again, until you're no longer a man, just a memory. There is no balance in a love built on self-abandonment. There's no closeness without integrity. You want to know what kind of man a woman can't walk away from? It's not the richest. It's not the prettiest. It's not the smoothest talker. It's the man who can walk away himself and still remain whole. Because the moment she senses you can't walk, that you're shackled to her presence, that your fire fades when she withdraws, she knows you were never fire to begin with. You're a candle, flickering, fragile, forgettable. But the man who doesn't fold, the one who grins in the face of rejection, who keeps moving forward regardless of her moods or distance, that man becomes a force. She can feel him, even while she tries to run. Socrates understood this. He lived this. While others performed for applause, he cut through illusion. While others sought followers, he sought truth. And nothing is more true than this. A man's foundation cannot be built on her approval, especially not the woman he craves most. Because she will press on your core, not to destroy it, but to find it. When she raises her voice, do you collapse? When she withholds warmth, do you chase? When she threatens to leave, do you lose direction? These aren't fights, they're trials. And every time you fail, she loses trust. Not because you're worthless, but because you've shown her your kingdom is built on sand. She cannot follow a man who needs her more than he needs himself. That ache you feel? It's not punishment. It's your invitation to rise, to refine, to become a man who can love without losing, lead without suppressing, feel without crumbling. This isn't shallow stoicism. This is sovereignty. This is masculine essence, stripped of addiction. This is the soul of Socrates, unshaken, steady, beyond manipulation. And that, brothers, is where love begins, when it no longer chains you. You weren't born to kneel for affection. You were meant to stand at the gates of truth and defend them with your life. That's what Socrates taught, not through cliches, but through cost. In his last breath, he chose death over dilution, silence over surrender, and clarity over comfort. And what's that clarity for you? It's this: you must not fear her nature, nor try to reshape it. You must rule your own. The woman is not your battleground. She is your mirror. She is the pressure point that reveals your cracks. And most men crumble because no one ever told them. She's not here to complete you. She's here to test you. If you accept that, she becomes the forge. If you fight it, she becomes the fire that scorches you. Don't ask her to be easier. Grow deeper. Don't ask her to stay. Become the man she can't walk away from. Don't ask her to heal you. Heal yourself so thoroughly that your wounds become wisdom. In the end, Socrates didn't hand out rules. He asked questions. Questions sharp enough to slice illusion, to rattle the soul, to tear off the masks we cling to. If you walk that road, you will lose things: fantasies, dependencies, entitlements. But you'll gain the only things that matter: clarity, rarest gem in an age of noise, stillness, the kind that can't be shaken, and power, not over her, but over you. And in mastering yourself, you will have already mastered the world. Let them call you cold. Let them call you harsh. Let them whisper that you're too detached, too rigid, too distant. These are the fears of a world terrified of men who won't bow. Because men like that don't chase trends. They don't collapse to impulse. They don't trade their integrity for kisses. They stand. Not because standing is easy, but because falling is no longer an option. And in that stillness, you become a beacon. Others will see you. They'll remember who they were born to be, and that spark will travel further than you can imagine. So to you, the man listening in silence, in stillness, in that ancient hunger only the awake can feel, I say, rise. Rise without hatred. Rise without shame. Rise without hesitation, not to oppose her, to reclaim you. Don't run from her tests. Don't curse her strength. Meet it with something greater, the man you were always meant to be. When you do, the game ends. The veil lifts. The soul takes flight. This isn't for the masses. This is for the rare few, the seekers, the builders, the uncrowned kings who still remember the fire. If these words struck something in you, don't keep them. Spread them. Let them echo, like, share, support, not for me, but for the truth. Because there are men out there starving for it. And if you've been fed, feed others. Let this be the start of your return. Not to domination, but to discernment. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs precision. Be that man, and walk forward, unshaken.